In this episode, you'll learn from a professional running physio/physical therapist why runners need strength training, why they avoid it, why she, the physical therapist, made a strength training for running app to address runner strength training allergies. Should runners lift to failure? Should runners squat all the way down to the ground, but to grass? Combining heavy lifting workouts with hard interval workouts in the same day and how it could benefit some people. How much does form really matter? Really? A few other secret hacks, tips, and tricks, and a bunch more. Let's get into it. So why do runners need strength training? This is, I'd say, the thesis of all the stuff we've done over the last few days of recording. I mean, look, 50 years ago, runners didn't do this, quote unquote. That's actually a lie. But a lot of people like to say that anecdotally. They're, I didn't hear about runners doing plyometrics and lifting weights and they were fine. So what do you think has changed?
I think the research has changed and there's been more and more coming out on how it can benefit runners. I was actually having a look at when it was first started appearing in the literature, and I really couldn't find too much beyond the 2000s. So really, I think beyond 2010, there's been so much more coming out and showing how beneficial it is to the sport. So I think it's still, I wouldn't say it's in its infancy, but there's not a huge amount of research from, the 1990s and later, earlier, I should say.
Always the research, always the data. Why do you think some, if not most runners, avoid strength training, not strength training, or I guess avoid strength training? What do you think it is, and how can they combat that? Like, what's a good tool that they can use, like behavioral? Yeah,
time I always find is the biggest factor. That's what they struggle with. They want to get their Ks in. They want to be, obviously, managing work, kids, life, and then strength training is just I need to get that done too. Some people are not as confident in a gym-based setting, so that may be a limiting factor. And
all right. I mean, cool. Yeah, they probably just like. It's just another thing. Usually, a lot of runners.
That's the two things I think about: is not feeling confident, not knowing what to do, and not having the time being the biggest factor. How they can combat that? Well, I mean, that's what I made an app for. is a nice little segue. But with making the app I just wanted to make something accessible to everyone. I wanted to make it quick and easy to do, like not easy as in effortless for the exercise, but something that doesn't take up too much time. I've got two facets with the app. One that's, home exercises, 4 exercises to do no longer than 20 minutes out of your day, or for those runners who do want to step in the gym, I've got some gym-based programs too.
Awesome. I will be promoting this and plugging this. Go check out the app, 10W2S. You literally just type it in. Most countries, it's available in the App
worldwide.
Store. Whatever App Store, Google Play, and Android and Apple. All right. So, would you agree that everyone has imbalances, especially runners?
Yeah, I mean that's just part of life.
We're not symmetrical.
No one's perfectly symmetrical.
So, how does strength training help the imbalances that everyone? Because I have my left leg is bigger than my right leg, and my right arm, upper body is bigger than my left. So I've got scoliosis, so I've got a curved spine. And it all makes sense with that. So how do people counter that?
Yeah, so first of all, with the strength training, you can, work some of the smaller muscle groups that you perhaps are not strengthening elsewhere. And you can also strengthen, your left side to your right side. So I often find with runners and injuries, I tend to find it's usually the weaker side that develops an injury first because it's simply due to a load versus capacity issue. So the load is all the running that you're doing and the capacity is the strength of the tissue. So that's the muscles, tendons, bone. So I tend to find the weaker side is more likely to reach that failure point too. But there is also some evidence to suggest that people may prioritize their stronger leg and therefore load it up more. So it's maybe different, but from what I see in the physio clinic, it tends to be the weaker side that reaches failure first.
Speaking of failure, in strength training, should you go to failure or almost failure?
I would say almost failure. Almost. So you're around that 85% repetition max. Yeah.
So you have one or two left in you?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, squats. The question of all questions. Ass to grass squat, so all the way down, half squat, quarter squats.
Half squats for sure.
Half squats for sure. Okay. Is there a time to do all three?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, variety is good, but in I guess in context of running, half squats more similarly replicate the running stride in itself. And that's also where the research sits. There was one study that looked at maximal strength training in runners and how it improves running economy and performance. And they were doing 5 by 5, so 5 sets, 5 reps. And they were only doing half squats. And they did it for 8 weeks. And they saw, big gains in their performance. It was basically performance what they were looking at. So time trial performance.
Yeah, you told me about that when we first met. And I started implementing them in heavy half squats, and I really liked it. I like lifting heavy. I have the power, fast twitch muscles, and then I hurt my back, but that was because I was deadlifting right after that. And
well, that's the mistake. While we're talking about that, I think with deadlifting, and it is one of my favorite exercises, but always do it first in your program, just because you are loading up those structures and of your back. And there's something called spinal creep. So if you're doing other exercises first, the mechanoreceptors, so the receptors that respond to movement, they're less able to, give the information to your body provide stability around the joints. So as an example is if you're maybe doing some back squats first and then you go to pick up something heavy afterwards, your back is less able to stabilize. So deadlifts, I always think, deserve to be first in the session. And I query whether doing deadlifts and back squats back to back is a good idea.
It is not for me.
Yeah.
I did it probably the last 4 or 5 years of me properly lifting, and every single time I start getting into the heavy sets, pull a little muscle in my lower back, and it's been extremely bad and just mild. And it's always when I do heavy squats followed by heavy deadlifts.
So my recommendation here is I don't think I ever program, or very rarely program, deadlifts and back squats on the same day. They're both heavy compound exercises. They are absolutely excellent exercises, one of the best exercises to strengthen your core, but they'll always be at the start of the session as the first exercise, and they'll likely be on different days.
Here's a fun one. When's the best time to do strength training for running? Very contentious topic.
I know.
Before or after the run? And then timing. Should it be 4 hours if you do it after, 4 hours after, immediately after, 12 hours? So which one is it? Because there's studies that contradict each other.
Yeah. I think the best strength is the one that gets done. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
You want to do the one that is your priority first. So if you're thinking like you've got a tendon injury and we really want to start be lifting heavy here, I'd go strength first and then do your run afterwards. If the run's the priority, run first and then strength afterwards. In terms of timing, obviously opposite ends of the day is better, but once again, no issue doing them at the same time. You just want to get it in.
Yeah, I to add on to that, I found in the preseason, and I call it the build, VO2 max build, and I actually prioritize strength. So I'll make sure that I get the strength done first, depending on my schedule for life. Luckily, I have a gym right next to me. I also have a whole bunch of kettlebells, and I got the Bulgarian bag. Is it one of the bags? I got random little bits and bobs in my house to where I can do a lot of single leg movements, functional type stuff. So I can move it around my schedule. But then as I get into my race build, which is about anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks out from my main race, I focus on running, and then I lift after, and I actually drop the strength training down to two times a week.
That's perfect.
But most of the year I'm actually like 3 times a week strength training, sometimes 4 if you add in the plyometrics. Strength training, I just like doing it, and I always make sure that it gets done. Because I can pretty much run. I run commute everywhere, so I can actually get in these incidental easy runs. Much easier than maybe other people. So, but yeah, I don't have a lot of time. I have the same amount of 24 hours that everyone else has. So I made sure that I had the kettlebells at home. I can do the home workouts. So I'm like, I can't do the calf raises at the gym. I'll just do them at home. And I just move certain exercises to home.
Another thing to consider too is I often read that, you shouldn't heavy strength train when you've got a high intensity running session, where I think it actually might be the contrary. You want to have your heavier days where your day off is where your body has that chance to recover and adapt. So if you're going heavy run day A, then heavy strength day B, you're providing a lot of training stimulus on each of those days. Rather, if you do the strength and the harder sessions on the same day, perhaps it gives a bit more recovery in the next following day. You don't have to do that, and don't take it with a grain of salt, but that's something to consider too.
Here's a kind of theoretical hypothetical as we wrap this up. Is doing something with average form and not the optimal reps better than nothing?
Yeah, sometimes I think form doesn't need to be as precise as we think it should be.
To get the benefits.
Yeah,
right?
to get the benefits. Any injury is when your body is not used to that stimulus. So if you have poor form when you pick up something and it was relatively heavy and it's an injury, my back's sore, then clearly your body's unprepared for it. But if you're in a starting place, yes, form is important, but it is, if it's not to a degree, I don't think it's a huge thing to worry about unless you're, again, lifting very heavy and you're not prepared for that lift.
If you want to learn more about this topic, we went into further detail. You should go and check that out right here.